two progressive pastors sit down to talk about running for Congress, there's probably a joke in here somewhere, but what it is, in fact, is a conversation between me, Rob Ryersey, the political director of Vote Common Good, who is also running for Congress in Arkansas's 3rd Congressional District, talking with my friend Justin Douglas, a pastor, a county commissioner who is running for Congress in Pennsylvania's 10th Congressional District. You're going to enjoy this conversation. Justin's a great guy. This is Common Good Candidates. Man, it's so great to have a friend of Vote Common Goods on the show today, Justin Douglas, running in Pennsylvania 10 for Congress. Justin, man, it is so good to see you. It's better than just being out on a street corner in Hershey, Pennsylvania, or something like that. But man,
Yeah,
it's good to see you today.
good to see you as well, Rob. We're both doing our thing out here, huh? And
Exactly,
been
exactly.
been following you, and obviously, Vote Common Good been following for a long time, and thankful to be on the podcast with you today.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's dive right in and, tell everybody what you're up to. You're running for Congress.
Yeah, I'm a sitting county commissioner. I ran for county commissioner seat in 2023, kind of an insurgent kind of campaign. Was successful. Flipped Dauphin County blue for the first time over 100 years. I think it was actually since the Civil War, and I ran on prison reform. And our prison has dealt with a lot of challenges when we talk about human dignity and people's rights, and something that I was really passionate about, along with other things like voting access and things of that nature, including more ballot drop boxes and ballot curing, things like that. I've been able to many of the objectives that I ran on. We've already been able to accomplish within the first 2 years, and we've had a real increased ICE presence just over the last year, especially in our Bhutanese Nepali community who have been deported. Many of them
Mm.
who came here on refugee status, and so for that, you know, it was one of the reasons that I chose to run. I also think we're just in a moment right now where we need leaders that have the courage to speak out and that can speak with moral clarity. And I feel like that's something that I bring to the table. And so uh, I was approached by some individuals and some communities and asked to consider a run for Congress. It wasn't really in the cards, but after a lot of prayer, thought, and consult with people that I really trust, and certainly my wife and I both, we have 3 kids, and we're not too happy about the shape of American politics right now, and uh, we're hopeful about the possibility for new leadership and the type of leadership that shows courage in the face of what we're seeing.
Yeah. It is such a moment where, my wife and I had, the same kinds of conversations where we're like, wow, we're really not okay with any of this. And what does that mean for us in how we're going to engage and what we're going to do about it? We're not the kind of people that just kind of sit back and watch stuff happen. We tend to jump into things, and I think y'all are the same way. So, how did you come about? You said some people approached you. You had some conversations and in prayer, but like, how do you decide? Like, okay, I've been serving on the county level. Now it's time for me to jump to the federal level.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a right time. I mean, I think, the everyone tells you to kind of wait your turn, if you will. Like that's kind of the typical politics.
Terrible
That's
advice.
what you're told to do.
Yes.
Um, I didn't wait my turn to run for commissioner, and to be honest, I skipped a lot of steps in that. Not that I take that for granted, but I would just simply say, a lot of people are township commissioners or school board members before they run for something like county commissioner. Look, our county is a pretty big county. It's Dauphin County. It's where you have Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's where you have the capital city of Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. We have almost 300,000 residents here. So it's a serious job. It's not just an elected official position. It's a job. I was a pastor for 20 years prior to entering into this. I'm not able to be a full-time pastor and do this work. And so, you know, it was a call to serve my community in this way. And I kind of feel that same calling when it comes to the problems in Washington. I think we're seeing a lot of people um, who I don't want to call people sellouts, but I would just simply say I don't think they're messaging in a way with the urgency, and I don't think they're standing up in a way with the urgency of the moment, many of them. And I think we need a new generation of leaders as well. I'm 41 years old. I think I would bring the average down a little bit for the age that exists there. And
It's
and
true.
I think,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from people that are much older than me, even people who have passed. And so I certainly respect the wisdom in the room, but I also want, representation for people who are in their 40s still paying on their student loans and figuring out how, as they're, my daughter's 16, she's looking at colleges, and I'm like, wow, I'm going to be co-signing on your loans while I'm still paying mine off. And I think we need working class people, people who, don't come from wealth in
Yeah.
Congress, because I think that's the only way working class people are going to be represented. For all these reasons and many more, I chose to take the leap, and I don't. And it's a whole different level when you're running for Congress too, of like personal, attacks, and your whole life kind of gets put out there.
Yes.
And I feel like those sacrifices are something I'm willing to make, given the moment that we're in. I just think we need leaders who are willing to put themselves on the line. As a pastor, I did that, in 2019. I lost my job because of including LGBT people in the church. And that was kind of a pivotal moment for me of, even just a narrative I tell my kids regularly: do the right thing, even when it's hard,
Yeah.
because in the end, it's the right thing. And you'll be thankful for it in the years to come. That meant a lot of hardship for our family. I had to work 3 jobs. I was an Uber driver for a while. I was a CrossFit trainer, and I was planning a new church that was accepting of LGBT people. And that church is still going strong. And I've been able to find some security in this job with our finances, at least. But I feel like there's some opportunity here to step forward and say, these are the type of leaders we need in Congress.
Yeah.
And if not me, who else is going to go? And I was waiting for other people to put their names in the hat that I would be able to get behind, and none of them did. And that led me to this choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about going from being a pastor to a politician. Because that's certainly a path I've been on as well. Oftentimes when we think about there being some kind of overlap between, pastors and elected officials, typically people think of that as something that happens on the right, like it's
Yeah.
a religious right kind of thing. And often it is accompanied by that pastor's desire to enforce his faith, because it's always a him, um, his faith on everybody else. There's some
Hmm.
kind of moral outcry that the culture has gotten so terrible, and we've got to take America back to be the Christian
Yeah.
nation it was intended to be. Uh, my hunch is that's not your approach.
Yeah, I would actually say my approach is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I was a pastor in 2015 and 2016,
Yeah.
when Christian nationalism just seemed to be, something that was really entering the political space. And I would
Yeah.
actually argue the inverse, that it was entering the church in a way that was really problematic, that,
Mm.
created a lot of necessary conversations from the pulpit and also in small groups and things of, ensuring that people were understanding that, this holding of our politic above the gospel is something, and conflating it with the gospel, let's put it that
Hmm.
way, is something to be very, very cautious of, given history. And when I look at where we are now, I don't take it lightly that I have a lot of power and authority in my job as a commissioner. uh, you know, One of the temptations that, Satan brought Jesus, if we're going to get a little bit theological here, is, I'll give you all the power and, of the empires. And basically, you will, be all powerful. And I just think it's interesting when we think of that as one of the things that Satan used to tempt Jesus. And then the idea that, we're not beyond temptation in that same realm of power and
Mhm.
control. And then, with that power and control, potentially trying to legislate our faith on other people. I believe the beautiful thing about America is that all faiths are represented, and and those of no faith are represented.
Yeah.
And I've had a commitment to that as a county commissioner. My office is always open to anybody of any faith, and I've met with all different faith groups, including those who have no faith. And so I will maintain that stand as a congressman, but even more so, I think we need people who understand Christian nationalism,
Mhm.
who were maybe raised in Christian nationalism. I have 2 degrees from Liberty University, so I think my credentials in knowing Christian nationalism are pretty good, to combat a lot of their agenda. I
Yeah.
know their tactics, I know their talking points, and I know the danger and threat that it is to this country,
Yeah.
because I do believe our founders had it right when they were, trying to make a space, especially here in Pennsylvania, religious freedom, such a cornerstone to William Penn's founding of this state, this Commonwealth. And I believe, our country needs to come back to the urgency of that, principle, and ensure that one faith doesn't get to legislate their morality or their beliefs or their theology upon everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I could not agree with you more. You know, I often think of a couple of things. One is, people will say to me, listen, I'm tired of pastors getting involved in politics, or they hear that I'm a pastor and they assume immediately that I'm like opposed to the separation of church and state, or just my running for office, causes some threat to the separation of church and state. And I mean, there's times I just want to like remind people, like, hey, it was a Baptist pastor named Roger Williams who came up with the whole like separation of church and state thing,
Hmm.
in Rhode Island. When that wasn't happening other places, he's actually the one who came up with this. And you can be a person who is personally motivated by your faith
Hmm.
without having that sense of I've got to like force this on everybody else. And
Yeah.
America has a tradition of people who have, in my estimation, gotten it wrong,
Hmm.
and people who have gotten it right. And you know
Yeah.
I I think you know we're both running for office as guys who've been pastors, um, and there's no way we can do that without thinking about loving our neighbor and
Hmm.
caring for the widow and orphan and thinking about the marginalized and welcoming the stranger and all of those things that motivate us. But that's not the basis of the policies that we're putting forward. That might motivate us
Hmm.
on a personal level, but we're not
Yeah.
trying to you know, take America back for liberal Jesus. There are
No.
other things that motivate what we're trying to do on a policy level,
Hmm.
because yeah, do you see that distinction that I'm making, and do you feel that? How
Yeah.
do you navigate that?
Yeah. I mean, I do feel that. I think many of those descriptors that you listed are core teachings of Jesus that transfer across all
Yes.
different faiths, which I think
Yes.
is unique. And then I
Yeah.
also think, even many of the people that I meet with no faith, they tend to be some of the most compassionate Jesus centered people I know. Maybe they're not
Yeah.
themselves followers of Jesus, but their ethic is typically pretty centered on, one person I know who's an atheist, and we talk all the time about the fact that, he supports me and he's an atheist, and this individual, feeds the poor regularly, and is super committed to his community. And so, I've kind of gone the route of talking about the fruits of the spirit,
Hmm.
and talking about, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. And I mean, if those types of descriptors could re-enter our politics, I think that would be good for everyone, not just those of my faith and my tradition, but those of all faiths and those of no faiths. And so I do want policy that's rooted in those descriptors, but I think most people do. And I think, like I said, people of all faiths typically agree with that. That the thing is though, when we talk about policy, policy is about solving problems. And so there should be a variety of ideas at the table. Rob, I bet if you and I were sitting down and looking at something we might need to try to fix in our neighborhood, if we were both, county commissioners or municipal leaders, we might both have two different approaches to it. And our faith shouldn't really be the determining factor on how we approach fixing potholes, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's not the way I look at it. I look at it as like pragmatic and what can we do that's going to serve the most people? How do we implement it in a way that's going to really
Yeah.
communicate the strategy and how this is going to serve our constituents? And so I think that is the best way I explain it. But I do sense, and I sense this because when we put stuff out on social media, this is some of the most viewed content, that when I do talk about being a pastor and when I do talk about the values that drive me as a human being to service and to care for people, especially marginalized people, that perspective on Christianity, there's a lot of
Hmm.
hunger for
Yes.
a different perspective. I definitely don't want to legislate liberal Jesus, because Jesus took sides, but he didn't take sides in political
Yeah.
fights as much as he took sides on the sides of people, and he cared for people. And so that's my intent, and certainly my faith drives that. But all faiths are welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you you don't look like the typical pastor. You don't look like the typical politician.
I'm wearing a suit today. You caught
I
me on a rare
know.
suit and tie day. You caught me on a rare day.
Yep, yep. But I mean, you've got the tattoos, you've got the
Yeah.
gauges in your ears. You've got a bit of a more casual style. Like, how does that play in this realm that there seems to be a prototype of what you're supposed to look like and sound like, and you don't necessarily fit that mold.
I definitely don't fit that mold. I'm probably more podcast bro than politician look, but I would say this, and let's reclaim the podcast bros. How about that? Common good
Yeah.
podcast bros. But I'll say this: we have a lot of fun with it. I am who I am, and
Yeah.
I'm not shying back from that. I love music. I played music through high school and through college. Played in bands, and part of that culture was tattoos and earrings, and I have those, and they're not going anywhere. Even we love all the comments we get, even on the commissioner page and the political page. We get all the comments about my earrings. Those are some of the funniest ones. We usually screenshot them and send them around, and probably the best one I've heard is, "Are those air tags in his ears?" So, um,
Yeah.
so we just laugh about it, and I'll say this: I think people are hungry for authentic people. I'm not
Yes.
trying to be anything I'm not. I mean,
Yes.
I have to throw a suit and tie on because I believe part of my role is to be professional. I was at a ribbon cutting this morning for a
Yep.
bank that
Sure.
in Harrisburg, and I want to put my best foot forward in this role and represent my constituents well. And so I believe that's part of the job. But I'm also going to be myself, and I think we're missing a lot of authenticity in Washington right now. Everything's kind of poll tested, down to even attire and down to the
Mhm.
type of person you are and the way you talk. And before long, you drift as a person if you're trying to meet everyone's expectations. Certainly, I want to listen to feedback and learn how I can be a better communicator and better at a lot of things. But I also want to be who I am because I think um, there's something important about keeping your identity in this particular space, especially because it gets pulled so many different directions.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about Pennsylvania's 10th district. What do we need to know about it? Not necessarily the politics of it, but like what makes this little area, this little slice of Pennsylvania a special place?
Oh, it's awesome, man. I moved here a little over 10 years ago, and we love it. Our family
Yeah.
loves, I live in Dauphin County, obviously. So when you're looking at that, that blue. If you were to go from the center and then just go all the way east, I'm basically in that little corner there in a little township called Conewago Township. I kind of live out in farmland area just outside of Hershey, Pennsylvania. And Dauphin County portion of PA10 has, like I said already, Harrisburg and Hershey, and then Cumberland County, we have Mechanicsburg, we have Carlisle, some amazing places there. We have York City is also part of this. So all of Dauphin County is in PA10, parts of Cumberland and parts of York County. And it's working class people. It's regular people. We have a lot of agriculture, and we have a lot of medicine in our region, and we have some colleges. Penn State Harrisburg's in our region. We have Harrisburg Area Community College, multiple other colleges as well. It's a great region to raise a family. We're ranked one of the best places to retire in the Northeast. And yeah, here's what I love about it. Since I moved here, it feels kind of small towny in the sense of, you kind
Yeah.
of get to know everybody in the area, but you're, 3 hours from New York City, an hour and a half from Baltimore, an hour and a half from DC. You've got a lot. You're an hour and a half from Philly, 3 hours from Pittsburgh. There's a lot to do in the region with very limited travel, and yeah, it's been a great place to raise a family. Our three kids have loved it here. We've been in the same school district, Lower Dolphin School District, since coming out here, and yeah, I plan on being here forever, as far as I'm concerned. Although, we've moved around a lot as a family, but I've lived here longer than anywhere else I've
Yes.
lived in my life.
Yes.
Anywhere else I've
That's
lived in my life. My
yeah.
parents, we moved when I was 9 years old. We moved from Palm Springs, California, to Shelbyville, Indiana, and I grew up on a farm in Indiana. And I always say my parents did the reverse Beverly Hillbillies, because I went from Palm Springs to there. Although I grew up in a trailer park in Palm Springs, but we've now lived here over a decade, and we love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've got a similar story that I've now lived in Arkansas longer than I've lived anywhere in my life, and we just have fallen in love with this area. Um, I mean, if somebody comes to visit, like Hershey Park's the place to go, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. I mean, I think, when people come visit us, that's usually the place
Yeah.
I mean, it's tourist, obviously. So that's the spot. But there's, the Appalachian Trail goes through our region. So those people who love hiking and love trails, we got an amazing park system. We've got the Green Belt, which is amazing. It goes across, so there's a river that divides Dauphin County and Cumberland County. And, there's an island on the middle where our minor league baseball team plays. So we might go to a
Oh,
baseball
that's
game
fun.
at the Harrisburg Senators Island Stadium there. It's a great region for a lot of things. When my friends come into town who have never been to this region, they always leave, you know, excited that they visited. And ultimately, there's a lot to do.
Yeah. So tell us about the race. Like you're running against a guy named Scott Perry, who is one of the leaders of the Freedom Caucus. One of the most right of the right, the most extreme
Hmm.
conservative in the House of Representatives. Um, but you've got a primary
Hmm.
before you get after him in November. When is the
Yeah.
primary? What's that race look like? How are things going there?
The primary is in May, and I think the race is looking well. Look, we're not taking any corporate PAC money. That's kind of a principle of mine. We are
Yep.
really under the belief that this is a grassroots campaign. But we've been able to mobilize and raise. I think we're up to $100,000 now, something in that range of money that's been raised since we launched this campaign back in September. And I'm really proud of that. I didn't have any infrastructure. My commissioner campaign was way more grassroots in the sense of, a few friends helped me out and we
Yep.
raised $10,000, and the others raised $250,000 each, and we got a seat. And I believe that same kind of energy is what we're bringing to this. It's not about money. Money doesn't vote, people do. And we're going to knock a lot of doors. We're going to make a lot of noise. We're going to talk about the issues that are important to voters. And yeah, we have a competitive Democratic primary. I think I'm the more progressive candidate in that, and I'm hopeful about what's possible in May, as voters in our region turn out and hopefully are fed up with Washington and want to send someone there. I have a firm belief that Scott Perry is not going to be our congressman after this year,
Mm.
no matter who's on the ballot, to be honest. Now, that doesn't mean the work doesn't need to be done. I
Yeah.
certainly don't want to jog our way to home base, but I think people are fed up with the ACA credits being removed, with the big beautiful bill and the consequences of that, with ICE's overreach. So many things I could just continue to rattle off, that people are not seeing a government that works for them, but that works for the powerful and rich. And we're going to be successful in November. And so I'm hopeful I can be the one that ultimately is carrying that torch through to November, and the voters will decide.
Yeah. Justin, we ask voters to use the common good as their voting criteria. And we ask people that are running for office to use the common good as their governing criteria. Um, it's less about, you know, always agreeing on, policy positions, and much more about a shared set of values. And I'm curious, when you think about the idea of the common good and how that comes into play in our politics, and, in the kind of congressperson you would be, what comes to mind for you? What resonates with you?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is we're represented by individuals in Congress who are incredibly wealthy. Only 2% come from a working class background, and many of them that even do come from working class backgrounds, as soon as they get into Congress, they become very wealthy. And so we're not really represented by individuals who represent the common good as much as the wealthy class. And I think that's one of the reasons, day one, I plan to sign my name to a ban on stock trading. When we talk
I'm
about
with
the
you.
common good, it means that our representatives hopefully are looking out for us first, not their own interests. And so that's a big piece, and that's just an example. But I also think the common good is standing up for the Constitution. The Constitution is a common good document, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that is the idea. The idea of due process
Yeah.
is the common good. It's not for the good of the person who needs due process right now that's maybe incarcerated. It's for me too. Even if I may never be incarcerated, in the event that I am, I should be afforded due process. I have, rights, and ultimately, everyone in this country has rights, and we're seeing a lot of those trampled on right now. I think we need a Congress that stands up to that. One thing I've been passionate about as a commissioner is, our prison, and I look at the state of the prisons, and the for-profit prison model that much
Yeah.
of ICE is, hinging on, and making groups like Geo Group incredibly profitable. Um, I think about the reality that as a congressman, I'll be able to walk through those detention facilities, and take much of what I've learned over the last 2 years, and call out, violations and things that are, that lack human dignity. I think the common good believes in human dignity for all people, and not just me, because the moment I center human dignity on how I'm treated, is the
Yeah.
moment I'm looking beyond the common good. And so I think common good really comes to, um, care of neighbor, concern for neighbor.
Yeah.
Whether you want to say love of neighbor, that's fine too. But I mean, a genuine concern for how
Yeah.
your neighbors are interacting with government, with life, and how the systems are affecting them in a positive or negative way, and using whatever influence or power you have to advocate for them on their behalf, because that's what we need more of in this country, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Justin, if somebody is like, hell yeah, I'm in. This is my kind of guy. How do they find you? What do you need? Where can they, where can they get in touch? What does all that look like?
Yeah, so justindouglas.us is our website. We're very active on our socials. Most of them are Justin Douglas, the number 4 US, or for us. See what we did there. And so you can find us there, on a variety, on all the socials, basically. Look, what do we need? If you're in Pennsylvania's 10th district, we need your vote. I'm a registered Democrat. If you're a registered Democrat, you can vote for me in the primary, and every single vote in the primary is going to matter. And if you're able and capable and willing, we can always use support in volunteers. So there's a place to sign up and contact us to volunteer for the campaign. We certainly need funds as well. Running a campaign's, not free. It costs money. And so, if you're able to make a donation, that's a massive help as well, especially because of our commitment to not take corporate PAC money. That puts us at a disadvantage given the landscape that exists right now. But yeah, anyway, please reach out. Please follow us on socials. I try to put up content that reveals my positions. We even have some people who will ask questions in the comments, and then I'll make a reel in response. And so I'm trying to be very active. We've already done, I think we're up to 5 town halls now that we've done where, I will take questions from the audience. I'm very transparent about who I am and what I believe. And my hope is that we don't agree on everything, but that we find a way to acknowledge what's necessary in Washington right now. And so feel free to send us questions. Feel free to interact with the campaign. We're very proactive in responding back.
Yeah. Justin, when you and I get to DC in 2027,
Yes.
we're gonna need to start the like progressive pastors with tattoos and earrings caucus.
Are you getting earrings,
Oh,
or do you have earrings?
I've got a pair here. Yeah, yeah, I've
Oh,
got a
that's
pair
awesome.
here.
Rock and
So
roll.
yeah, so we. I mean, will
I
it
was
just
going
be
to
you
say
and
the
me?
common good.
Will it
I
just
was
be
going to say the common good caucus. The
okay?
common
We
good
can do that, but
caucus.
I mean,
Okay.
but I think a progressive pastors with, with tattoos and earrings caucus is
All right.
desperately needed in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
Hey, my friend, it's been
Yes.
so great chatting. We will be out on the road with Vote Common Good and coming through your area for sure. Um, and I encourage folks to get online, follow Justin, get on his website, and smash that donate button. Justin, thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Yeah. Yeah, Rob, thank you so much, and good luck to you on your race. And I do want to just say, Vote Common Good has been a great source of encouragement to me, even prior to ever running for office or thinking that I ever would. Your guys' bus coming through town and the energy y'all bring to the issues that you stand up for. I'm just incredibly grateful for all the work y'all have done. And so I want to say this because Rob won't say it. Make sure you're supporting Vote Common Good as well, because what they're doing is really important for a lot of places that they go visit. So,
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Appreciate it.
yeah. All right.